Alright, hello and welcome to another very exciting episode of the Android Development Video Tutorial Series. I'm your host, Matthias Reich, and in this episode we will take a look at checkboxes and how to incorporate them into a bit more advanced layout. Okay, so instead of creating a new project from scratch, I decided to build upon the project we created in the last episode. So in case you haven't watched that tutorial yet, I highly recommend that you do so before you continue with this episode. Just to refresh your memory, here's what we came up with last time. We simply had that edit text view and a button, and if we click that button, we would output some text into that edit text view. So this is our application we will create today. We still have that edit text view and the button, but now we have also two checkboxes which we can check or uncheck. And if we click that button, it still outputs the same text. But if we check the checkbox for the color text, it'll output red text actually. And then if we check the checkbox for the bold typeface, we will output red and bold text. And then if we uncheck the color text, guess what? Yeah, it outputs just simply black bold text. And if we uncheck that, it's back to normal. So this is what we want to create today, and I'll show you how it's done right now. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to Eclipse and open that project we created last time. I called it Simple Button. And at first we want to create that layout for those checkboxes. Now let me quickly bring that up again. As you can see, it's a bit of an advanced layout. Like we have two lines of text here, one with a large font and one with a very small font, and then the checkbox to the right. So we want to create that layout, and to do so, just go to your main XML, and that usually brings up that graphical interface designer, but I don't want to use that today. I just want to show you how to create that kind of layout with only XML code. So what you want to do is you want to go to your main XML source code and go to the bottom here. So what we want to do, we want to wrap that whole UI element in its own linear layout. I want to type open angle bracket linear layout. It also suggests that I want to have a linear layout. And then in the next line, I want to type Android : and this is important since all attributes you add to those elements, you have to prefix them with the Android namespace. And if you do so, you'll also get a list from Eclipse of which attributes are available to you. So each UI element in Android has to have two attributes defined, and those are the layout width and the layout height. And so we want to do that first. So type layout width, and we want to type equals, and now we want to make that UI element span the entire width of the screen. So we want to choose fill parent. Alright, and then for the layout height, we simply want it to be large enough to fit the content, so we just choose wrap content. Alright, and the next thing we want to do, we want to specify the orientation of that linear layout. So a linear layout can either be vertically aligned, meaning that new elements are stacked on top of each other, or it can be horizontally aligned, which means that the elements are stacked side by side. So in this case, we want to have a horizontal orientation. So we just type Android orientation, there we have it, and then we choose horizontal. And finally, we want to give that whole linear layout a little bit of padding. So type again Android padding equals, and now we want to choose 4 dp. And now you might wonder what the hell is dp. And dp is one of Android's own defined units, meaning density independent pixels. That means those are units that are based on 160 dots per inch resolution, meaning that 1 pixel or 1 dp equals 1 pixel on a 160 dots per inch screen. Now, if you increase the dots per inch resolution of your display, those units are scaled accordingly, although they're not necessarily scaled proportionally. So that may sound a bit weird, and yeah, it really is a bit weird. But the thing you have to know is that whenever you use paddings or margins, you should really use dp instead of px, which would be a normal pixel. So our padding is 4 dp, and we can actually close that off with a close angle bracket, and Eclipse automatically inserts the appropriate end text. So we'll put that in the next line, and now we want to actually create another linear layout inside of that linear layout we just created. So I'll type open angle bracket linear layout, and this time we want to have a layout with a vertical orientation. So for the orientation, choose vertical, and then again we have to specify that layout width and layout height. So for the layout width, we'll choose wrap content, and for the layout height, we'll also choose wrap content. All right, and then again we want to give this one a little bit of padding, and this time we'll choose 2 dp. All right, close that off, close angle bracket, and now inside this linear layout we actually want to create 2 text views. Those are just, ordinary text labels. And the first text view, where we have it there, this is going to be our text view with a large font, which you actually saw here, those use color text font. All right. So at first we want to set the layout width and layout height properties. We choose, wrap content, Android layout height, and also wrap content. Then for the text, the actual text that is displayed within that text view, we want to just set, a variable type string, and we want to call it, color large, and then we want to set the text size, and we want to set that to 18 SP. Now here's another custom unit. SP means scale independent pixels, and they're actually quite like those density independent pixels, the DP unit, but they also take into account the user's font size preference. So whenever you specify font sizes, instead of using ordinary pixels, you should use those scale independent pixels, SP. All right. So now we can close that off, and then we want to create actually another text view. And now, to save some time, let me just copy that one we just created. And alright, so here we have it. Obviously, there are two things we need to change. First, the text string that is displayed. Let's change that to color small. And the actual text size, we will change that to 12 SP. Alright. So now we've created our two lines of text, and what we want to do now is we want to create that checkbox. So in order to do that, we want to come in here. So after that inner linear layout, and we want to actually create, guess what? Another linear layout, right? So simply do that. Oops, Android and layout width equals yeah, we want to fill parent because it should actually take up the whole remaining space to the right. And then we want to choose layout height. Again, simply wrap content. We want to add a little bit of padding, about 2 dp should be fine. And now we want to introduce another attribute. It's called gravity. And gravity simply is the orientation of that whole element. So we will choose gravity right, and that means that it will position that linear layout to the right of the screen, much like if you've coded HTML or CSS, like a text align right or float right, something like that. All right. I guess that's everything we have to do for our layout here. And inside that linear layout, we want to actually create our checkbox. So type checkbox, Android layout width equals wrap content, Android layout height equals wrap content. There we go. And now, since we actually want to access the state of that checkbox from our source code, we need to give that checkbox an ID. So I'll choose ID equals a new ID check color. All right, so that's we can close that off. All right, so now we seem to have an error here, and let me just, oh yeah, all right, of course. We made a mistake. We have to copy all that stuff we just created, and we cut that out, and then we have to add it before the closing linear layout, because the final linear layout here, that closing tag, is kind of the end mark of our screen. So everything we want to draw on screen needs to be defined before that closing linear layout tag. So I'll just cut out what we just created, and I'll just paste it in here, and then I'll save that. And now it gives us two more errors, which is obvious because we haven't defined those string resources yet, color large and color small. So what we want to do now is we want to come to our strings XML and actually add those two strings to the resource list. So I'll create a new string name and name that color large, and the text should be use colored text. Right, and then the next is string name color small. I'm going to check to output colored text. Alright, so we'll save that. And when we come back to our main XML, we can see those errors are gone. And now if we switch to that graphical interface designer, you can actually see that now our content element is properly displayed right under that button. Alright? So, but this is only the first thing. So we need to create the second checkbox where we can check whether we want to use bold typeface or normal typeface text. But that's really simple now because we already created such kind of element, and what we want to do is we want to simply copy our linear layout or our complex layout. So I'll just select it and choose edit. Edit copy. You may not see it, but it's up there. Or you can simply, press Control C. And then you want to come down under that complex layout and just paste it in. Control V. And so now, if we save that and we switch back, we actually have two of those items. Now obviously we need to make some modifications because it now uses the same text and it also uses the same ID as that checkbox up here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to come back to our strings XML and actually add two more string variables. So we'll create a string name, and this time I want to call it bold large. Use some bold typeface, and finally string name bold small, and check to use or to output bold text. Right, so save that. And then we want to come back to our main XML and again switch to the source code view. And when we come down to our copied element or our duplicate element, we want to just change color large to bold large so that it uses the other string variable, and color small to bold small. And the last thing we need to do is we need to come down to the checkbox and change its ID to, I don't know, check bold. Alright, so save that, switch back to that graphical view, and now you see it actually uses the new text, and it also has an ID different from the one up here. Now you can see here's the text that gets a little bit cut off, but don't worry. If you actually launch that application, that text will display perfectly fine. Alright, so next thing we want to do is we want to actually code the behavior of those checkboxes. So in order to do that, just switch to your Java file, and the first thing we want to do is we want to actually create two variables for our checkboxes. Now to do this, you want to come up here, add a new line, and type checkbox. Be careful to spell it with a capital B for box. And I just want to call it check color. And then add another one, checkbox check bold. Now, as you can see, it gives us the error, and that's because we haven't imported that checkbox widget yet, and so just hover over that error and choose import checkbox. And as you can see, it's added to our import list, and we're perfectly fine now. So, next thing you want to do, you want to come down to your onCreate function, and just above that code we did last time. Just add check color equals, and then we want to cast that to a checkbox. And now we use that familiar method, find view by ID, r dot id dot, and then we want to choose check color. And the same for our other checkbox, so check bold equals, cast that to checkbox, find view by ID, r.id dot check bold. Alright, so now we can access the state of each checkbox through our variables. So what we want to do now is we want to come to our onClick method, where we listen for button clicks, and just before we output the text into that edit text view, we want to check the states from our checkboxes and then modify the text that is about to be outputted accordingly. So what we want to do first is we want to check if the checkbox for our color text is actually activated or not. So you type if check color dot, and then the checkbox comes with a method. It's called isChecked, which is true, or which returns true if it is checked and false otherwise. So if check color is checked, then we want to set our text color to something nice, and so we type my text, which is the variable of our edit text view, dot set text color, and then simply type color with a capital C dot I don't know, let's choose red. That's nice. Alright, so if that check color checkbox is actually checked, then we want to set our text color to red. If it isn't checked, then we want to set our text color to something neutral, which is, for example, black, right? So else set text color to color black. Alright, so now our checkbox for the color text is perfectly working. Now we need to implement the checkbox for our bold typeface or normal typeface. So again, we want to type if check bold dot is checked. We want to set my text dot set typeface to typeface with a capital T dot default bold. Alright, so if you check it, the actual typeface is set to the default font but with a bold weight. Else, if it's not checked, then we want to set our typeface to just the default typeface with a normal font weight. Alright, so that's basically all there is to do. So just save your Java file, and now you're ready for launch. Alright, here we are in our application. As you can see, it looks exactly like I showed you in the beginning. So now if you click that button, you can see it works as expected. It just outputs normal text. If we use that checkbox here, you see it outputs red text. And if we choose or select that checkbox, it'll choose a bold typeface, and those combinations also work. So this is bold black text, and this is back to normal. All right. That's about everything I wanted to show you for today. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If so, it would be nice if you would, comment on these tutorials or even share them. And if you have any questions, you can also write a comment. And I hope you found this useful. Next time we'll have a look at radio buttons, because they're a bit different to implement than checkboxes. I'm really looking forward to that tutorial, and I hope you guys too. And so have fun and experiment with that project or that application a bit, and I'll see you guys next time.